Alright, yeah, welcome back to some more Magic the Gathering Arena, and today I've got a special one for you, a real doozy. We're going to be playing some Explorer Best of 1, still my favourite format right now, and yeah, nothing's really changed on that one. And I've been revisiting old archetypes and figuring out whether or not they're actually quite good. And I came back to an old one that we did with Gyruda, Doom of Depths leading the charge here. 6 mana 6/6 legendary creature, Demon Kraken. It has Companion, which we are taking advantage of here. It says your starting deck contains only cards with even mana values. That allows you to put it in the Companion zone and have a virtual 8th card in hand, which is just broken. If you can make companions work, it's stupid. So, Gyruda is in our companion zone, which means we're forced to play even mana cost cards in our deck exclusively. But what does Gyruda do? When Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player mills 4 cards, and then you put a creature card with an even mana value from among the milled cards onto the battlefield under your control. So what are we going to be milling? Because you might see that we're not exactly running anything that's bigger than Gyruda, so it's not a reanimation deck in the traditional sense where big old Ulamog might come out. No, actually what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cloning Gyruda. The best clone that we can do that with is going to be Spark Double here. Spark Double being a 4 mana 0/0, enters the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker, except it has a +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature, and it enters with an additional loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker. And it also isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. So, we're going to mill 4 cards, try to hit Spark Double. It's not a big deal if we don't, but we're going to try to. And then we're going to make a copy of Gyruda. That means we got a 7/7 non-legendary Gyruda once that happens. From there on, Gyruda's Enter the Battlefield ability will go off again, and then we're going to mill 4 cards. We're going to try and hit another clone. So our other clones are going to be Vizier of Many Faces, a 4 mana 0/0 that can enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, even our opponents, which is pretty cool. That's actually the upside of the rest of our clones. This one turns off Legend Rule on our Gyruda. These ones can copy anything we want. So, Vizier of Many Faces enters as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except for it's a zombie if it was embalmed. So embalmed means we can exile it from our graveyard for 5 mana to then make a copy of a creature, but it's a token. I believe that's how that works. We also have Undercover Operative from Streets of New Capenna. The moment this was spoiled, was the moment I thought to myself, maybe we've got enough cool clones in the format now to do Clone Tribal. So Undercover Operative enters the battlefield again as any creature on the battlefield, except it has a shield counter if it copied a creature we control. So then we can have a Gyruda with a shield counter on it. We also have Mirror Hall Mimic from Crimson Vow. Enters the battlefield again as any creature on the battlefield, except for it's a spirit in addition to its other types. And then it has Disturb, which won't come up very often, but it is a thing. At the beginning of Enchanted Creatures Upkeep, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except for it's a spirit. So you make a copy of it every upkeep, basically. It's very rarely going to come up. It's definitely not coming up in today's video. But we're going to be trying to copy Gyruda once again. So that is 8, 10, 13 copies of clones for Gyruda. But that ain't all. We also have Wisp-Weaver Angel and Charming Prince. Charming Prince is a modal creature on 2, which is great for our combo because one of the modes is Scry 2. So we can Scry to try and find a Gyruda so that we don't have to pay the 3 mana to get the Gyruda out of our companion zone. So that's quite nice. We can also gain 3 life if we want to stabilize. Charming Prince is a good blocker once it's done its modal thing. And then the third option is to exile a creature you own and then return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So if we hit Charming Prince when we're milling 4, we can exile Gyruda, and then on our end step we can try the whole combo all over again. We also have Wisp-Weaver Angel, a 6 mana 4/4, enters the battlefield and exiles another creature you control, then immediately returns it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So we can flicker the Gyruda original copy. So there is one thing that I will mention during the gameplay, but I'll mention it during the deck tech as well, because you're here to learn how to play the deck. So when you are milling with Gyruda, you want to focus on keeping your Gyruda in play at all times, because if you play a Gyruda and then you make a copy of it with, say, a Vizier, and it legend rules, you want to keep the original Gyruda, because if you hit Charming Prince or Wisp-Weaver Angel, you'll want to flicker the Gyruda. If you flicker a Vizier copy of Gyruda, it'll come back as Vizier, which will then become a copy of something else. So if you don't have the ability to copy Gyruda, you're going to lose your ability to keep milling. So that's something to consider. You want to always have a Gyruda card in play, if you can. Otherwise, you're shutting off these 8 cards as a possibility to continue going off. So you might be asking yourself, how do you win? Well, one, you can probably get an idea of the amount of Gyrudas we're going to be putting into play. So combat damage is a thing that we can go and win the game with. We can also make a lot of Wisp-Weaver Angels, which can fly over the top as well and kill our opponent that way. But because each player mills 4 cards with Gyruda, that means that we can chain our combo together over and over and over again until our opponent runs out of cards. Because we're both milling at the same time, and I don't have to draw any cards to complete my turn, that means we can get ourselves both down to 0 cards. I end my turn, and then on our opponent's draw step, they try to draw a card, they can't draw, and they lose. So if both of our decks are empty, we win the game, basically. So we can continue on that way, or we can win with combat damage if we are to whiff. You're more likely to whiff than you are to mill your opponent, but if you have your Gyruda combo whiff halfway through, and your opponent hasn't been decked, you've probably milled over some excess clones. Like when you're milling 4, you can only pick one of them. So one of those other 3 at some point is bound to be a Vizier or a Mirror Hall Mimic. That means for 5 mana, you can start the combo all over again to try and mill them. So that's another option there. So you could do it over 2 turns if you really want to, and you're probably going to have a board state that keeps you alive in order to do that. And yeah, that's kind of the idea. The rest of our deck is just to get to Gyruda on time and dig for it. So we've got 4 copies of Paradise Druid, a 2-mana 2/1 that has hexproof as long as it's untapped. So it's a mana source on a mana dork that is very hard to deal with and can be a reanimation target for Gyruda. It can also be a clone target for mimics and spark doubles and things like that. So if you have 1 druid, you can then on turn 3 clone the Paradise Druid, and that puts you up to the mana you need for Gyruda. We've got Growth Spiral, which draws a card and puts a land from your hand onto the battlefield, which is quite nice. And then we've got the Reclusive Taxidermist from Crimson Vow as well. This one gets +3/+2 as long as there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard. Our deck is almost exclusively creature cards, so this could be a 2-mana 4/4 in the late game, so it makes it a good blocker if you do have to have that 2-turn mill cycle, basically. And then it's also, obviously, adds 1 mana of any color. Yeah, this deck's pretty sweet. It's actually got a pretty decent win rate as well. It is surprising how many fair decks it takes down. It'll struggle a hell of a lot against control matchups, obviously, because Gyruda is the only relevant card that needs to be countered for the most part. But you can go down with your mana dot beatdown plan, copying your opponent's creatures to win that way. And things like that. We got Zalfarian Voids in the in the mana base as well. These allow us to scry. Spara's Headquarters from Crimson Vow, our Bantlands, allow us to cycle and dig a little bit further. Got some Radiant Fountains to gain life to keep us alive as well in the late game, and 4 copies of Temple of Mystery again to try and find the Gyruda. Your opening hand should have either mana dorks to pay for Gyruda in your companion zone, or a Gyruda in your opening hand. If you don't have a decent amount of mana dorks, and a Gyruda, then you're going to want to consider mulling a little bit deeper. And it's not too much of a downside to be doing that, because you're gonna draw a lot of clones anyway, and your hand's probably going to be full of clones. So if you think about it that way, every time you have a clone in your hand that can't copy something, you've already virtually mulled anyway. So you can mull a little bit more aggressively with this deck for sure. But I would say if you have mana dorks, you want to keep that hand if you can cast them. If you have a Gyruda in your hand and there's a pathway towards casting it, you want to keep that hand as well. Otherwise, you probably want to consider maybe mulling it if you don't have like scry lands like Void, Temple of Mystery, or even the Charming Prince. But yeah, hopefully today's gameplay can showcase how to play the deck a little bit more. There's a lot more nuance to this deck than it might first appear. It does kind of look like a brain dead combo, but there is a little bit more thought to where your clones go and things like that than it first appears. You can definitely ruin your own combo if you're not playing it properly, so yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you do, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And without further ado, let's get to it. This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Okay, opponent goes first, and we've got a playable hand, so we're going to keep it. We can play Paradise Druid and make copies of the Druid. Opponent's on Ketria Triome, so Teamer. Maybe Fire's Invention. Something of the sort. A deck like Fire's... Oh. Oh, it's probably like a 4 or 5 color adventures list. Fair enough. Alright, well, I'm going to play Radiant Fountain. We're going to go with Paradise Druid. That way I can shock Breeding Pool and have a guaranteed target for my clones. Or I could just play the Taxidermist and Temple. Or Taxidermist plus Growth Spiral. Okay, so Clover gets to do the copies on the adventure side, and Innkeeper gets to draw from the other. So what do I want to do here? Because I could play Spark Double to copy Paradise Druid, giving me a blocker. I think that honestly just feels like the best thing to do. They can do like Brazen Borrower, bounce Paradise Druid, but they don't get 2 copies of it, which means the first one would fizzle, and they'd lose the creature out of it. Alright, so they get the Beast. That's going to draw them 2 cards. They are tapped out. No good attacks. Wisp Weaver Angel. So I can put Gyruda into my hand. Play... I guess just Temple. That puts me on the 6 mana I need. I don't want to draw another clone, so I'm going to put that to the bottom. And then I could end step Growth Spiral, but I won't do that unless our opponent taps out of their blue. Take 5. Because if I tap out, then I lose hexproof on both my druids, and a Brazen Borrower gets 2 bounces, so we don't like that. But a tap out here, if they just played the other Lovestruck Beast, lets us go for Gyruda. I don't think they'd want me to do that, though. Alright. That leaves them... That does leave them with 2 mana. I've got to be cautious how I do this as well, because if they put blue into play now... They don't. Okay. So no Brazen Borrower. If I went with Gyruda, for example, and didn't hit another Gyruda off the mill, they could bounce my Gyruda, and my clones could only hit a Paradise Druid. So that's something to consider. Alright, well, we're going off. Our opponent's tapped out. I even get to Growth Spiral here. Yeah, I guess I'll put a Zalfrin Void into play. A Vizier of Many Faces is a clone, so we'll put it to the bottom. 3, 6. Ooh, I get Gyruda, and then I get to repeat it with the Charming Prince if I miss. That's fancy. Alright, let's go. We missed. Oh, that's so unbelievably unlikely, but here we are. Alright, well, there goes my whiff potential. Let's go again, shall we? Gyruda. Alright, we hit a Mimic. Hit a great Mimic, actually, because we got Spark Double. Hit 2 of them, which is unlucky. Got a Wisp-Weaver Angel. So Wisp-Weaver can flicker original Gyruda. I think is the plan. Go again. Hit a clone. The clone will be copied of the Spark Double version. Go again. Got a Spark Double. And an Omnath. That's probably not that great. Another Gyruda, please. We got a Gyruda. So we'll take the Gyruda and keep the old one, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Got a Wisp-Weaver, so we get to go again. Do I want a Wisp-Weaver or do I want a Mimic? I guess I want a Mimic, actually. Copy a Spark Double. Wisp-Weaver. Or another Mimic. Guess we'll take another Mimic. Go again. And we hit a Taxidermist. Alright. So that is us over. We could go again next turn with our Vizier and our Wisp-Weaver Angel. We've got a lot of damage in play. And we can easily block our opponent's board. They're on 6 cards to our 11. And I think between Vizier... Yeah, between Vizier and the Mirror Hole Mimic... Oh no, this is 5 to disturb. Some weird graphical error there. Actually, with the Taxidermist... No, I could actually Vizier and Mimic. Both of those between would mill our opponent to death. So our opponent has to win right now. Not sure it's possible. And they're also drawing 2 cards a turn, so now they're in 4 cards, which means 1 Gyruda trigger is enough to win the game. So 2 Lucky Clovers means 3 triggers on any spell they might have. So let's start with Vizier of Many Faces. Unless they can make me draw, it's not really a concern. And there they are, out of cards. I'll take my... I guess Charming Prince gaining life. Just in case they can upkeep kill me somehow. I've got 6 cards to their 0. And so I believe I've just won. I can play the Taxidermist. Yeah, I can't think of a way how I lose from here. So I'm just going to pass the turn. I don't think they can 17 me on their upkeep. As I say, I think the only way I can lose is our opponent makes me draw, and I have to draw 6 cards, which I don't think is possible. A draw 2 I could maybe see, but... yeah, all of this doesn't matter. And we took him down. Alright. Yeah, we're pretty good against fair decks without counter magic. It's fair to say, I think. Sweet. On to the next one. Alrighty then. Opponent goes first. We've got basically just a growth spiral. So I think this is an easy mull for us. We want like a mana dork or a lot of lands that growth spiral can make good use out of. With this one, we're going to have to use an Aether Hub energy, so I think that one's an easy mull. Alright, this one's an easier keep. What do I get rid of? I think it's Spark Double. Spark Double's a great one for hitting off of Gyruda. Vizier and Mirror Hall can hit Paradise Druid and any of our opponent's things if they seem pretty good as well. So we're going to keep this one. Alright, we've got Pelt Collectors over there. Charming Prince. Alright. I think we'll start with the Paradise Druid, because if we get a land, we can go straight into the Mimics. You're not going to have to shock ourselves, but that'll be okay. Put us on Gruul. Gruul's a bit of a 50-50 matchup. It's best for us when we can... let me think about this. Do we want a Charming Prince? I'm wondering about shocking myself, basically. I think I might go Charming Prince. It's a good blocker for Pelt Collector. I get to scry and try and put a land on top. And put the clones to the bottom. And I guess now I'll shock myself, because I can Growth Spiral into that void and then scry again. Nullhide Ferox has Hexproof. Alright, I could make a copy of that. This stops our opponent from playing non-creature spells. Don't know why our opponent's trading here. It's the easiest trade of my life. Alright, give me the void. The land is great. So I can pay 2 to make it lose abilities, so it doesn't have hexproof anymore. Then I can make a spark double copy of it, meaning mine's a 7. Oh no, sorry, it's this one's only one of my own creatures. I could make a copy of it, or I could Gyruda to hand, tap land, but then they could go land Embercleave, and I'd probably lose the game. So I think I'm gonna make a copy of it. Do it with Mirror Hall Mimic, I suppose. I'm not sure it really matters. There we go. So they had the land. If they had the Embercleave, they would have gone for it, but they don't, which is fantastic. So I'm going to go Gyruda. Spark double my Ferox. Now I'm definitely not going to die to Embercleave, and then I've got Gyruda next turn. Okay, my opponent really stumbled here. Oh, they've got Golta. Oh my god. Well, maybe I will die to Embercleave at some point, but let's find out if it's today or not. Gyruda, go. Alright, we got Charming Prince. Charming Prince allows me to go off on my end step again. Let's Temple, try and put a clone on top. Bottom anything that's not a clone. Pass the turn. I should definitely be able to put 12 points of blockers in the way. Alright, we got a Vizier or another Gyruda. I think the play is Gyruda, right? Because this will legend rule anyway. So let's just get the legends out of my deck. I think that's correct. Okay, we got an Undercover Agent or one of their Golters. What was if I made a copy of their Golter? Would that be a good idea, knowing that I could fizzle here? I think I'm just better trying to go for the win. You do want to keep a copy of your own Gyruda, because if I hit Wispweaver, then I have nothing to flicker into a Gyruda again. Okay, another Gyruda. Not hitting very well here. We did hit the Wispweaver, though. And a Mimic. So I'm going to go Wispweaver, because that doesn't legend rule. And it's very upset, but they're not scooping, which means they're enjoying it, actually. Alright, we whiff. We get their Crawl Harpooner. Alright, it's your turn. We get to go off next turn. Again. I'm going to put everything in the way of their creatures. Except for the Gyruda. So this screams Embercleave to me. So I've got to make sure that I put enough in front of both of them to not die to Ember Cleave. So this will be 14 damage. So I'll put that here, and then everything else except for Gyruda goes in front of this. And I guess if this isn't enough, then that's me basically saying I'm dead anyway, because if I give up the Gyruda, I lose. So, opponent, do what you're gonna do. Ranges blockers. Yeah, this allows them to... Oh, they go Colossus. Okay. I'm at 9. I'm at 9. Okay. They've got 24 cards. I'm gonna... Let's see, I could go Wisp-Weaver Angel. I think Wisp-Weaver Angel's better. Because copies could become Wisp-Weaver Angel instead of Gyruda. So let's flicker Gyruda. Could have gone to the attacks, but I'm not going to need to. I've only got 24 cards to go down. Let's begin the mill. If that was their best turn, I don't think I've got too much to worry about. Alright, so I've got an Undercover Operative, which can become a Wisp-Weaver Angel. Flickering the Gyruda. Interesting deck from our opponent. Big Gruul. Do they have Ember Cleave? I would imagine we'd have seen it by now if they did. No, they've just got Collision Colossus for the trample. Okay, flick up. Doesn't seem like they have a good way to kill me out of nowhere or even interrupt my combo. So they can lose any time now. All right. Okay, I think we just got a Spark Double. Yep. So now we can create copies of Gyruda, which is probably better than Wisp-Weaver Angel, just because of the extra power there. Ferox or Wisp-Weaver Angel. Flicker the Gyruda. Oh, I love this deck. It's so fun. For me. Alright, I think I saw another Spark Double there. There's also the mystery of if you're not looking at your graveyard, did you hit what you needed to hit? Nobody truly knows. Alright, Spark Double. The Gyruda. And then we know we're going to hit another clone. Our opponent is out of cards. I'll take their Galter, because I can. Alright, they deck on upkeep. And I can swing for 2. It's probably going to make them Salt Rope. They won't block. Oh, they did. They let me go to combat. Alright, do I want to win the game? Yes, please. Sweet. Oh, the mill victory. Yeah, this deck could do with a way to give these guys haste. There isn't actually a way to do that right now in Arena, unless I don't put Gyruda in the companion zone, which I think is a fundamental mistake of the list. I suppose maybe there's an instant or sorcery that does it, but you really want a creature, so that when you're doing your mill thing, then you can pretty much guarantee you're going to hit that card at some point. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. Either way, let's go to the next one. Alrighty, on the draw. That's where this deck seems to always be. This hand's a mull, I'm pretty sure. It does have a Zalfrin Void for some scrying, but we don't really do that until turn 2 if we're hoping to top deck into a 2-drop mana dork. And I'm not too confident that turn 4 Viziers are really going to get us there, so let's hit the mull button and be pretty happy with our decision. We can go down Spark Double, I suppose. It's the best copy that we've got in our deck. And you can be any creature on the battlefield as well, so... It could be a Paradise Druid, it could also be whatever our opponent's playing. They're on Gruul. Been seeing a lot of Gruul recently. I think I'm about 50-50 with that matchup. If we can get to Gyruda on turn like 4, then it's pretty good. If we can't, then it's a bit iffy. Zalfrin Void, okay. Can also find ourselves... Ooh, lovely. Can also find ourselves copying all of their bigger creatures to stonewall them with, like, operatives and stuff like that. Especially having operative taking their creatures that might trade into ours and then having that shield token. Actually, no, shield token's just for our own creatures, isn't it? But, yeah, here's a great example. I could actually just copy Questing Beast, and then I've got a blocker for Questing Beast. Alternatively, we're on 4 mana, this would be 5, this would be 6. Alternatively, I could just go for the win here. If they had a red source, they could Embercleave me for 10. But that's not a big deal. So I can scry 2 and make sure that my first scry has a... Or my first hit on Gyruda potentially has... Do I even want to play Charming Prince, actually, now that I think about it? Because if I play Charming Prince, Paradise Druid gets opened up to Stomp. And then I'm not on Gyruda next turn. So actually, I think I'd pass here. And we play the Void to put a clone on top. Or to try it, at least. So yeah, they get to go. They could Embercleave me, as we all know. But that's only 11. It is a bit odd because Questing Beast with Embercleave on it is really bad. I'm going to have a hard time, I think, blocking that if our opponent knows how Death Touch Double Strike works and Trample. But we got no choice. We got to go for it. We got a Vizier. Vizier copies Gyruda. Keep the Gyruda. Kind of whiff again. We got Charming Prince, though, so that's just an end-step flicker on Gyruda here. This is why we keep the Gyruda and not the clone of Gyruda. We hit a Mirrorhall Mimic. We're trying to deck our opponent now. I think that's really the only hope we have of winning the game. We hit a Spark Double. Alright, so our clones can now become copies of Gyruda. But it doesn't particularly matter, unfortunately, because of the way that Double Strike Death Touch works. So let's just have another Gyruda. Got a Vizier. I do wish it would stop defaulting to my opponent's graveyard, but here we are. We got another Vizier. Hit a Mimic. Just got to make sure I hit the non-legendary. Got a Gyruda. Which definitely want to do that over Charming Prince. Keep the old one, I guess. Hit the Mimic. Alright, we're kind of getting there. We've got to keep not whiffing. Hit a Spark Double. Any of these, please. Come on. We hit a Vizier. I think we've done it, chat, because there's a Spark Double on top. Yep, no cards left. Spark Double becomes a Gyruda. Opponent has to win on upkeep. If they don't have a Stomp in hand, that is game over. Wow. Lethal on board. Look at this wonderful little stack here. Yeah, opponent probably didn't think we were a mill deck, did they? Oh, they had Ferostodons as well. Another way that our deck can really suffer is if they play Ferostodons. Because obviously we're making copies every time of of Gyruda, and being an aggro deck, we're usually quite low on life there. Oh man, that was fancy. So they had 1 Bone Crusher in exile right now. 1, 2 there. 3 there. Another Ember Cleave. Looks like they're only playing 3 Bone Crushers, or maybe they didn't set an upkeep stop. It's either 3 Bone Crushers, or they didn't upkeep stop because they didn't expect to mill themselves. If they had the Stomp in hand, though, we were dead, so... yeah, I guess punished for not running 4 Bone Crushers. I don't know. I'm not sure what the Gruul aggro list looks like these days, but... I mean, this list looks pretty stock to me. It looks pretty much what I would expect from it. You know, all of the Ember Cleaves, the Collected Companies, Spellbreakers coming back in a big way as well. Either way, though, pretty sweet, and on to the next one. Alrighty, we're in, and we're up against a Yorion list, which these days usually means a polymorph. I do want to play our opponent's deck at some point if it is the polymorph list. It's kind of a tier list, but at the same time, still a pretty fun one. We're going to keep this one because it does have mana dorks, a little bit of card draw, and a Gyruda in hand as well. So that's like 3 out of 3 on our checklist of should I keep this hand. It needs basically 1 or 2 of those things. It's actually Grixis. I guess it could still be polymorph list because you use Luca, use Transmogrify, that kind of thing to get the job done here. I'm just going to go with a Zalfrin Void here. I'm going to put a Mana Dork on top if I find one, because I'm a little concerned I might get disruptioned here. But I'm not going to play around it. Alright. Could also just get burnt. Omen of the Sea. Yeah, I think this is a Transmogrify list. Which will be really interesting, because if they do get an Agent of Treachery, I have, like, 10 cards that copy their Agent of Treachery. So it's just going to be a really fun trade-off of Mr. Steal Your Lands, if we can get there. I think it'll be really amusing. Alright, so we're going to go Taxidermist again, Cascade, and Hold Up and Growth Spiral. They don't have a token in play to Transmogrify, so we've got that going for us. They could sweep, but then we can Growth Spiral, putting a land in play to make up for it somewhat. I am going to Growth Spiral. Breeding Pool in tapped. And then it's nice that we've got the spare copy of Gyruda, because that means that we can essentially go again next turn if they do have counter spells. And we've got Disruption mana to play with as well. So I guess we just go for it. I mean, there's nothing I could draw that would change what we're doing here. Okay. Lolth and a Sorin and a World Tree, interesting. So I'm going to make a copy of Gyruda. Now our opponent with single targeted removal can't really stop the combo anymore. Fae of Wishes, it's actually let me take Vizier. It's actually a Super Friends list from our opponent. They could have board wipes, but I can draw them through most of their deck here. Let's go with Undercover Operative, so if they have destroy-based effects or double damage, then the shield token creature is... yeah, so like double Anger of the Gods isn't gonna kill us here. And our opponent's had enough. So they're actually Grixis Super Friends, as it turns out, so using big ol' Bolus to copy loyalty abilities, I would imagine. Yeah, this guy right here. Shark Typhoon. They only had Commit to Memory. We milled a Commit. They didn't have another one. We never saw any other counter magic. Fancy list from our opponent. They are a Yorion list, so we'd have to go 20 cards deeper than our own deck, so milling doesn't seem like it would be that good. But if they're running Anger, it suggests to me that they're probably not running too many hard Wraths. And Languish doesn't do it, which is a good Black Wrath in Explorer right now. There's also Shadow's Verdict, again, doesn't do much here. They could do Extinction Event, I suppose. That would be pretty good. I mean, my entire deck is even mana cost, so it is just a Wrath of God with Exile attached to it, so you never know. But, yep, we got there and took the victory. If you did enjoy today's video, guys, that's where we're going to end it off here. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really does help out the channel a great deal, and I do greatly appreciate it. Other than that, guys, take care and have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.